Okay, welcome back. It is time for the coaching call. We are limbering up. I've just counted because I wasn't counting, but we have 24 days until race day. So it's starting to get a bit close.
Yeah, it's time to get to the wire, son, to the wire.
So yeah, anyway, how have you been this week?
Yeah, good. Lots of projects on before we fly out. So I'm going to try and shoehorn in a couple of testing days. We're going to be going out to a Formula One team and doing some bits out there. So
Okay,
could be quite fun. But yeah, as you said, not long to go. So getting some bits in before then.
Yeah, very good. Well, this week it's been a bit busy. I've been rather stressed with work. Plus, I've been not my GCSEs, but my eldest daughter's GCSEs. So she's been off on. She's been down in Wales, and I was basically I'm the taxi driver. So I was doing that, and then my brother has had and his wife just had another baby. So a quick hospital visit sandwiched into the middle of that, and then back home for a heat chamber session.
Love him. That's his life.
Yeah, exactly. Just your standard week.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, good stuff. Well, next week's a bit different as well. So I'm off to Crete for a few days with Basil, and luckily he's into his running, so it's a running holiday. So I've got a few days with him. We're kind of not the whole island, but kind of traversing the island. So we're going from kind of point to point to point, carrying. Well, I'll be carrying stuff, and he'll be running. But that's the kind of makeup for next week. So it's a bit different to normal. But as we've said, it's more heat training. We're not looking for massive load at the moment anyway. And the sun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The solar loads there has a big tick in the box. General heat exposure, massive tick in the box. Keeping the body ticking over. We're not looking to increase, like you said, training distance and external load right now. We're actually just looking to build up that internal load now with the heat stuff. So all the hard work's being done. Just get to that start line as injury free as we can. That's the aim.
Yeah, that's the plan. So I'm trying to think of other things to cover. We've been looking at the heat training. I suppose the heat training, we talked about heat training, but one of the big things that seems to have occurred or one of the outcomes of the heat training has been my sweat concentration. So that has dropped. So the kind of amount of sodium per litre in my sweat has dropped down. I've not kind of put all the numbers in to work it out precisely, but definitely a few hundred milligrams per litre kind of trending reduction. Depends a bit whether it's a sort of treadmill session or an outdoor session. There's a sort of variation, but certainly definitely a reduction, which is, well, for me, that's really good news, right? It's like the adaptation, but also it means I don't have to shovel quite so much salt in. the numbers just make it a little easier.
So that's 100%.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you think about how many pills or grams per hour we're having to factor in, if it was like one of those salt tablets, it could be like 6 an hour we were looking at having to get in at one point. So then now it could be 5, which is just one less per hour. Therefore, 35 less tablets by the end of the race potentially, which is like 2 pots.
Yeah, and I think the other bit not only is it less to take in, but if we're out by a bit on each hour as a percentage, it's a smaller percentage we're out by. So it sort of de-risks the whole process. Like, if you're out by whatever, make up a number, 200 milligrams, but if you're out by 200 milligrams and per litre, and you should be taking in, say, 1.2 grams, that's much better position to be than 200 milligrams out on 1.8 grams, because of course it's, as a kind of percentage, you'll be closer to what you're trying to consume. So I know
that's what
I know you. And, well, I was going to say, I know you and three of my 4 crew are. It turns out quite like a spreadsheet.
What do you mean? I don't like spreadsheets. Give me a VLOOKUP any day,
Yeah,
I'm there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, I think that's the monitoring piece we're now needing to bring in. Having done some sciencey stuff in the field before, it all goes to shit without beating around the bush
yeah,
when chaos ensues, and just making things as simple as possible to notate down, to bring in, to what did you give him? Boom! It's two buttons to press. Then everything else is extrapolates off automation. As much as that as possible, because again, like the small percentage we're out by, a lot of the time is down to human error. And if we can reduce that human error by decreasing admin and decreasing other bits, it makes it so much easier.
yeah,
So yeah, we yet to have like the sit down comparison of spreadsheets, but I showed my cards the other day, and I was
yeah.
quite happy with the response.
It's basically. I'm not sure we can share. It's basically spreadsheet wars at the moment. It's no, but it's actually really useful because from you've put together a spreadsheet, and Brad and Rich have put together one, and from different perspectives and different angles, it's come together, and obviously loads of similarities between the actual the output, but also the way of thinking and how to do it, and without geeking out too much, but like things like keeping track of rolling averages and different averages over different time windows to see whether and how, sort of cumulative deficits and all this sort of stuff. And like you say, you know, it's only going to work if we can keep the data going in. So it's kind of trying to make that process as simple as possible, and hopefully it just gives everyone a kind of snapshot 20 hours in, so we know roughly where we're at and how things are going.
Yeah, and also like how do we then bring that into the idea of pace as well? So it's correlating not only the input but also the output too, making sure that we're on track with the actual race environment,
Yeah,
and everything kind of falls in line with, okay, yeah, we're an hour behind schedule, but everything's going really well from a hydration and everything else perspective. Let's not just suddenly just like step up the pace and start to pressure on that, or actually like we need to now start pushing the pace because we're quite far behind what we thought we were, being so focused on this piece. So
yeah,
there is information back to you again, being like, cool, okay, we've got plenty of room here to push up a little bit more. We've got our routine, we're set. It's just down to you now.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like being able to bring it all into one single environment to make those decisions off is going to be fun.
Yeah, and it's something we've talked about as well. The kind of well, a few things. One, I'm not used to having a crewed race, so most of a lot of this stuff I would sort of have to calculate or work out on my own on the fly. So of course you don't do it properly because you're kind of guessing, and your brain doesn't function. Certainly later on. But what we've also tried to do is we're trying to the conversations we're having at the moment are trying to try and sort of put structure in place. So we're trying to make less decisions on the go. And an example of that is um, we're going to have sort of kind of fake aid stations and fake bag drops. So the kind of concept being because it's a total free for all, like we can stop as often as we like and we can stop whenever and all the rest of it, subject to a few places on the course. The risk is you fall into a routine where you're just like very frequently stopping, very frequently reloading, et cetera, et cetera. And when you think about, or when you're in the world of running an ultra and the kind of long distance, you kind of want to break it down into bigger chunks or chunks that you can kind of tackle. And if that chunk is only 3K or, 2 miles up the road, that's a lot of things to go for. And so we're well, I'm not like you guys are going to set kind of arbitrary points, which will be quote unquote aid stations. So that's like, okay, Ben, you've got, yes, you can refill bottles every 3K or whatever. We'll be there to do that. But actually, the next proper aid station is in 6K or in 12K or in 15K. So there's this kind of slightly, although arbitrary, there's this slight get your head down, you've got to get 15K done rather than 3K, 3K, 3K. And the same idea with the kind of bag drop. It's like, okay, at the 50-mile mark or the whatever mark, there's a kind of that's a real target. Get there. That's when you can have a sit down, change your shoes, and do it. So it's kind of trying to put that structure in place now and sort of absolve me of responsibility. So on the day, I'm like, okay, I've got to get to this point. I can't perpetually be like, oh, I want this, I want that. Like it's got to. We're trying to kind of create that situation where I can not be a decision maker and I can put my trust in you guys. And my focus is get to the aid station, get to the milestone, get to whatever it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like classical orienteering, pretty much. It's like I've got to
Yeah.
get to that point there. I can break it up a little bit if I want to, but if I've got to be there by a certain time, I've got to keep moving. So, um, mission control will will give you
Yeah.
those destinations to mission towards.
Yeah. And that's the point. Yeah. This is the kind of, yeah, I suppose this is sort of sharing in the mindset, like my mindset going into a normal ultra and trying to replicate some of that into this. And then we know, you don't have to look at many photos of Death Valley to realize, the roads, or a lot of them, are straight and they go on forever. So there isn't that kind of natural, like geography based kind of breakdown necessarily. So it's like the idea is by creating these milestones or creating these, these points, we're sort of, okay, it's artificial and there's nothing stopping us, but it creates a bit more structure. And therefore I've got something that I can sort of lock my head to rather than, I've only got to get a mile up the road, like sort of stopping all the time, or wanting to stop all the time. Yeah, it's a bit like the classic, like if you're running up a hill and as soon as you give yourself permission to stop, you will keep stopping for the rest of the hill. Whereas if it's just no, then you'll get going, you'll go up the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's without kind of flogging a dead horse. I think the mindset is going to be the big part of this puzzle. Is I think we've mentioned with that Professor Robert Kennebec, even though all these things are going to be controlled and we're going to try and ply with as much of the adequate hydration and so on, but if your mind is not on target, it's going to be much harder, even though everything else is on point. So whatever we can do to make that slightly more motivating, friendly, whatever it needs to be, that's going to be probably the biggest part of the race is actually your
Yeah,
mind. This is why you're doing it. Otherwise you can just go for a run in Bristol. But it's going to be a real mind challenge. And the biggest bit I think people will leave too late is that stuff. And I think this bag drop setting out is a very low hanging fruit for that because it gives you something to target. And everything else around that can start to form off that solid foundation. So, okay, yeah, why are you doing it? What does it mean to you? That all stacks on top of the idea of just got to get to that bit.
yeah,
that 15-mile stretch is my motivation period. Okay,
yeah,
suddenly you get there, and if like say for example, in a normal ultra marathon, they say 15 miles, and you get there and it's not there. Oh crap, that's going to be that's a real mental descent because you expected it to be there. I think you mentioned about Nova Coli, like they sometimes do that as part of that because it is a challenge.
yeah,
I know the military, they do that kind of thing as like an expectation dislocation, or you're told you're going to get picked up from that field, you get there and there's no helicopter. Oh,
yeah,
actually it's going to be over this field now, it's another 20 miles away. You've got to pick yourself up and you've got to get going. That's hard to do for 37 hours or whatever it ends up being,
yeah,
between 30 and 35 hours. So if we can put those things in place for you, it just takes a lot of that mental load away.
yeah. And that's certainly, I mean, I remember in Marathon des Sables, like you had like this kind of guidebook, which is the kind of navigation, and it's very easy to navigate. Like it's kind of obviously you're sort of following a long trail of people, and it's quite easy to do. But what they always did, or whether they always did it on purpose, or whether my perception of it was like it would say like there's an aid station, or the finish is up here, like something not so much aid station, like water station, or the finish of that particular course. but you could never see it. It was always like down a dip or just
Hmm.
a little bit around like so you never, even though you kind of were like trying to working out to that point, it was like, it was always just a bit unsure. And that process pushed you into that. Okay, well, I've just got to deal with what's in front of me, which is, in that case, more sand. But it's that idea, like if you can do it and you can get to that point, they're the mini wins. And also it's something to focus on, which is, yeah, take trainers, for example. Let's say I want to change my trainers. If I know the trainers are 30 miles or 40K up the road because they're in the bag drop, I don't have to think about my trainers every kilometer because they're 40K away. So it's like you park that. So you're able to disconnect from these various kind of decision making. So you don't get the decision fatigue. So you're able to just simplify it down into something really simple, which is keep moving forward, as fast as you can for the conditions and all the rest of it. And just focus on that really simple in the moment thing rather than, oh, I could do this, I could do that. Or what about this? What about the other? Like it's stripping all that back and saying, my task is simply basically drink or eat whatever you guys put in my hands within reason. No, no.
Like Anchorman.
Yeah, exactly. But drink that. You've got to drink this, right? Off you go. So I'm, disconnect from that. So I'm like, okay, just get on with it. And I provide feedback, but the aim is not to provide a decision. It's like, it's feedback so you can make those decisions. And the rest of it is like, my job is just to make relentless forward progress. So, and if that becomes my focus, then by stripping the rest away, that's the mindset you want to enter in, and that's what this is in the end. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely. I like that. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt, relentless forward progress.
Until it all went wrong.
Yeah. So I wanted a drink.
Yeah, relentless forward progress until I couldn't.
Love it.
So it's so we've got 24 days, like 4 weeks, but fly on the 22nd, so that's 3 weeks away.
Mm-hmm.
So overarching plan, what's the overarching plan?
Yeah, so we're just maintaining mileage right now. We've got a 20K this week, and to do the longest run has been done. We don't need to do anything near that again. Some people would be bleating around, saying, "Oh, well, you've left it too far away," or whatever. Like, it takes time to recover from these big efforts, and I think a lot longer than some people appreciate. So we've pushed it back, got that one out of the way. It was more of a logistical thing anyway. We know you can do the distance. It's just going to be now in the conditions, but I'd rather prepare for the conditions here, where it's downhill exposure. So we're doing the more neuromuscular based stuff, eccentric loading of the muscles. It's keeping ticking over with mileage just so we don't detrain, but we're maintaining as much as we've progressed with. Heat exposure and solar exposure, two different things come under the same umbrella, literally. And you're going to get about that next week with Basil on holiday, but then also when you get back from there, we'll do another training block in the heat chamber. Depending on what the weather's doing, actually, we might be able to do a bit more of it outside and keep the solar exposure up and test some of the more specific equipment as well as it's come in. So, there's some other bits to throw into the mix here, but most of it is the sharpening of the edge when it comes to training, and there's a ton of logistics. That's kind of what we're at now.
And there is a lot.
There is a lot of logistics, and the spreadsheets are thickening out. But I think the bit that we want to be able to really hone in on is how late are we going to leave that last heat chamber block? Because technically, as we've already talked about, after doing those 10 days of heat training, we build our pint glass up to full, and every day after that, we're not in the heat, we lose 2.5% of the adaptation. So it's a fine balance between how much can we do and how close can we do it to the actual event itself. So we're going to obviously get out there and it will be hot, but we don't want you running much when we get out there. But maybe there's a good opportunity just to be in the heat a bit and just
Yeah, I
be
mean,
in the
by the
environment.
nature of it, right? We've got 2 days in LA, and then we go up to Lone Pine. So it will be warm,
Yeah,
and we can just. I mean, we're down. Yeah, you can't do much about it, right? You can't control everything. So
no,
that's just
exactly.
where we're at. The only slight issue we seem to have at the moment is my my treadmill in the heat chamber yesterday was not yesterday on Wednesday kept busting the trip switch. So something's complaining. It's either said this is too hot and I'm like going to fuse myself, or it's just got so much sweat in it somewhere that it's having a bit of a hissy
So
fit. So
it's all that sodium you've been losing. It's
yeah,
it's binding to the electrics.
yeah, exactly. It's like this treadmill was not designed for salt water. Yeah, it's not marine grade.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So
Well,
yeah,
there are other.
that
Well, hopefully, the next attempt we'll get a more commercial partner on board for the treadmill, and we can you'll have to
yeah, exactly.
upgrade your lab.
Upgrade my treadmill. Yeah, and then the other thing we've got is on the 15th, I'm going into the Exo lab. We're doing this carbohydrate test, so which I don't know a ton about, but I know the basic premise is to actually test how much carbohydrate your gut can absorb, right? So does clever stuff with
Yeah, it's
carbon isotopes and stuff, but
exactly, yeah, and actually, it's even deeper than that. It's actually how much carbohydrate is your gut able to absorb, and then your muscle able to utilize. So, what we're measuring, what they'll measure, is the carbon dioxide you breathe out is basically the fuel that you've burned, and they can measure C13, which is a carbon isotope that's present in carbohydrate fuel. So when you're taking in the carbohydrate, we can measure the full circuit approach. So then we can say, okay, actually, Ben, you're able to utilize 90 grams of carbohydrates here, or it may be even like down to 70, and then it helps us optimize on the fueling. Because what we do know is that there seems to be a potential gut limit around 90 grams per hour, but some people can tolerate more, and some people seem to be able to maybe even utilize more. And so we can basically see now, okay, if we're throwing it down your throat, what's going to be then wasted off and what's going to be utilized, so we can optimize that intake. I know, actually, I was going to send it to you earlier. Did you see that Morton have released a new
yeah,
drink
new
mix as
kind
well?
of gel
480.
drink mix. Yeah,
Hey, Rennie.
yeah. We need to. I'll ping him another email. But I
yeah,
mean, it's a good point because that's something on that, even on that 80K run, like which wasn't that long. It wasn't so much palate fatigue; it was just sort of different. You know, consuming quite a lot because I had layers on and it was hot. It's just like too much of the same thing. It's not. I'm less bothered by the taste of it, more than just the kind of feeling like I've filled up on that or I need, that kind of thing. So,
yeah. This is obviously where sports nutrition has kind of had to rein in the window of which it measures. So they'll be looking at most of the sort of marathon distance or a couple of hours or 90 minutes worth of activity, and how much can someone tolerate and how much can someone utilize and so on. This is obviously a very extreme end of the measurement circuits, but if we're able to, for at least the first 7 hours, get 90 grams of carbohydrates down you, then if it does become fatiguing and at least we've got that first 7 hours, and we're now able to titrate off a little bit more. But we do know that up to 120 grams an hour decreases the perception of exercise, perception of effort during exercise quite a lot. And this sort of crossover point, which some people talk about, where fat and carbohydrates, basically, you start burning more fat off the back of the carbohydrate depletion. Even as at the easiest intensities, we were still burning like 2.7 grams of carbohydrate every minute. At probably like 6 minutes a kilometer, which is kind of what we were thinking about aiming for, really, and averaging over the race. So that's 2 grams per minute. So 120 grams an hour you're going to be basically burning. So if we can meet that demand, then great. We save all that glycogen for the harder sections, which is the climbs, effectively. If we can get that in early, then the rest of it then works out to be cool. We can dip into our reserves a little bit, but then we're back on track again.
Yeah. Well, we will get, and that lovely number that they come up with, you can then plug into your spreadsheets, and then you can all be. And
But
yeah, like you say, it's all about really just trying to set out with a plan and sort of hold it as long as you can, with the expectation it's not going to work. Like, it's not like you have to rigidly stick to it, but at least you've got a principle that you can try and aim towards. And the longer you can do that, the better, the better you are later on. And I think, even thinking back very briefly, but thinking back to Stratford, like, you run a marathon, I did the kind of nutrition plan with Morton, and you're taking gel beforehand, a gel within the first 5K, and you're like, you just don't feel like you need it. But of course, it's not about then. It's about, if you deplete then, you're going to be carrying that depletion all the way through. So it's like basically getting it in all the way through. So it's a similar idea, just extrapolated out to a lot further.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think we talked about before the golf ball effect, like 0.1 of a millimeter hitting the golf ball off center means at the end of it, it's like 20 feet off target.
Yeah.
And so, the more we don't dip into reserves early on, the more on target we're going to be further down the line. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. See how much we can throw down your neck.
Yeah, well, at least I'm not too fussy.
Yeah, exactly.
I might become fussy very quickly.
But as part of the spreadsheet, though, we're going to be sort of thinking, what other foods could we potentially have on board that we can just factor in? Like, okay, he's had a bag of pretzels in one of his breaks. Cool, we can just enter that in. We know the carbohydrate content, we know the sodium content, and it all adds it up and throws it into the mix. Because, and that's part of the chaos of race day, is that your taste buds just want something that actually we didn't account for in training. And as long as we've got like a relatively all-inclusive spreadsheet, which we can easily create, cool, we just type in pretzels, it comes up, and we can just add it in.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, one day soon, maybe we should give everyone the benefit of this spreadsheet. I don't need to be on that call. The three of you can have like a three-way spreadsheet off.
Well, I kind of feel like this is my I'm showing a lot of like vulnerability on my side, because I've only just been into spreadsheets the past couple of years. These guys have been like part of their job, so this is me coming as a newbie going, this is what I did.
I know you've got an accountant, you've got a kind of Brad. Rich is a trained accountant. Brad has worked in that kind of field and operations, and you all together, it's like it's the perfect storm of things. Although there's competing. Let's avoid the elephant in the room. We've got Google Sheets versus Excel in there, which is we're gonna at some point we're gonna have to converge.
Just saying, clouds work much better than Google Sheets.
Until you're in
free. What?
Until you're in Death Valley.
Exactly.
So, good stuff. All right. Well, I will keep in touch through Crete, and then we'll be back and we'll carry on.
Sounds great.
Nice one. All right. Speak to you soon.
Have a good time.
Cheers.